Hey, welcome. So today I wanted to have a conversation with my colleague Adilet. Welcome, Adilet.
Hello, Brian.
Hello. Um, so what I wanted to have a conversation about today was the with clause in Elixir. And I think it's been my experience that a lot of code that I've seen and a lot of developers that I've talked with maybe don't have a lot of experience with the with clause, even if they do have a lot of experience with Elixir. So I want to sort of test that theory a bit today. Would you say you're a fairly experienced Elixir developer?
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we start with your understanding of the with clause in Elixir?
From me, the with clause is to describe the happy path of your code. And honestly, this is I don't like to write ifs in Elixir code. And the with clause is the one of the ways to avoid writing a lot of ifs. So you think about only a happy path of your code, and like everything else should be on Elixir side. So it's a so and also like I like the idea of maybe monad. It's from functional programming. So with in some its own way, it's like a realization of these maybe monads. So this is my understanding of how to work with the with clause. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good description of it generally. It's interesting. I feel like I've looked at monads a number of times, and my brain always seems to slide off of the descriptions when I'm trying to understand them, or at least I understand them, and then later on I'm like, wait, I don't think I understood it, or I don't remember. Um, but yeah, I think that's true from what I understand. That it's this sort of there's this maybe case. I think that's great, but I think we might get into some things here. Maybe might surprise you. So let's see what we have.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing, actually, I just learned recently, um, the with actually when it compiles down to a Beam file in the Beam virtual machine, it essentially just generates case statements, which I didn't know until just recently. My colleague Robert Verding
Mm-hmm.
helped me look at the underlying Erlang code and sort of decompile it, and so I thought that was kind of interesting to see. Maybe sometime it'd be interesting to write a blog post about that. To be like, this is what you get from a with. But let's look at a basic with. My AI is auto completing for me. So this is, I think, a pretty standard with example, probably, would you say?
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of the times you don't necessarily have to, but you might take like variables from a previous with clause, like this A here, and use it in the next one, and on, and then end up with some sort of final conclusion here. And so I would ask in this situation, like, what happens if in function 2 we get back an error tuple that's like error not found?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say? What would happen there? What would be returned from the with?
These tuple.
Yeah, the error not found, right? So that's pretty straightforward. That
Until we declare the else part of the
Yes,
with, and then in the else we should we have possibility to clarify what to return in what cases. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we'll get to that in a minute here because I think that's a very important point. But that's exactly right. So, and I think it's also worth pointing out. So, like the function 1 will be called, function 2 will be called, and it'll return that error, and then function 3 won't be called because we sort of fall out when we get that error out of the with. And yeah, so I think this is what most people understand about with, and I think that's pretty straightforward. So then, yeah, as you said, let's say we have a with clause So, or sorry, an else clause. So I'll take that here. Here's an example. So if we have, if function 2 returns error unknown,
Mm-hmm.
or sorry, I was not found before. So maybe that's even a question of like, okay, what happens here if we get an error not found like before?
As I remember, it will generate the clause matching error.
Yeah, exactly. You get a match.
Because in the else section, we have to like like in this case, we can write the for not we can like we should pattern match our errors, or we should like by the error tuples, or we can just put the like for the all errors return something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, so that's what we get is we get a match error exception. So it'll raise an
Mm-hmm.
exception. And so for me, that's sort of the first. I don't know if it's exactly a gotcha, but it's a thing that people should know is that when you switch, if you have some sort of match problem with the width without the else
Mm-hmm.
statement, you're always going to get some value back, unless one of these functions raises an exception by itself. But that's kind of a separate thing. Then if we specify the else, then we introduce the possibility that we might get match error
Yeah.
exceptions, right? So that kind of changes the behavior potentially of the width. So then, because you might think like, oh, I'm just handling this one, but it doesn't default.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
you
yes.
can do this, right? And then you sort of turn it into a thing where it's always going to return whatever, right?
Yes, yes.
But that can be a bit like you might. Well, it's maybe okay in some cases. Cool. So, and also that's also a bit different than the else that you might have in a with statement, right? Or sorry, an if statement. So
Yes.
yeah, because you
Yeah,
would
maybe, yeah. Maybe it's I don't know, the flaws of design of with, because yeah, so like intuitively you are thinking like everything should go to the else, and yeah, so I'm returning everything safely. But no, no.
yeah. Yeah, and so I think also this is kind of what you were saying. If I wanted to go and say error not found like that, and maybe resource not found, and then if I wanted to handle this, maybe all the very specific things like um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, timeout, right? Then we're gonna, that can be kind of a nice. That can kind of seem like a nice pattern. But what would you say are maybe the problems with this sort of approach? I don't know if you have any opinions or.
Yeah, so yeah, so honestly, I don't like to write all of these things in the else block. Honestly, I'm trying to avoid declaring else block as possible. Like, so I want to see in my code happy pass everything that went not good. Okay, so I'm just returning the error, and what happens, then what happens. Like, this is what Robert Wedding taught me. Like, just
Yeah,
send the error to someone, and it's not your problem. Yeah, in the ideal case, it should be like this. Of course, it's like, yeah, in the real life, it could not be like this. Sometimes you need to handle these errors, but in most cases, in most of the cases, I don't like writing errors like this. So sometimes you need, like, I'm writing else just to log error.
sure.
Like, so in this case, I declare this like general pattern for an error, and just send it to the logger, or to something else what we
Yeah,
have in the application.
yeah, and I think that's not a bad idea. Yeah, and so like so I think I generally agree with you that I think like specifying all these cases is kind of it's kind of a pain, but also like there's a couple things like if you have like error unknown, it's always possible that like two of the functions or more might
Yes,
return the error unknown,
yes.
so you don't necessarily know which one that's coming from. So you kind of lose that.
Yeah.
Um, and also like if you again if you don't happen to catch all of the errors, right? If you haven't looked through the code very thoroughly and caught every single possible case of an error, then it's like you end up with this match error which you may not expect,
Yeah,
right?
in the runtime. Yeah.
Right.
So
And you do, like to your point about the happy path, right? You do want it to fail sometimes when it's something that you don't expect to happen. But if it's something that you might potentially expect to happen and you just didn't happen to handle it, then that's maybe not exception is maybe not what you want. Um, but there's also and the another approach which I think is relatively standard is we can have helper functions. So if we want to call function two, we might call like handled function two. And I think this is sort of best practice advice, in some cases at least, where it's like, okay, if you want to call function two and you want to be able to handle the errors, then you make a helper function to call function two. And this is maybe not the best naming, but basically you could say like, okay, I know what I'm handling here. It's specifically for function two. Um, and this could even be a function in some other module, right? So
mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I didn't know about this approach. Yeah.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
a in the Elixir docs, which actually I feel like I need to go back and look at the Elixir docs because I looked at them so long ago that like there's been so much that's been added. And there's a whole section on code smells, and there's a one particular code smell that they list about like complex else statements, that kind of talks about this specifically and how you should extract out helper functions if you
Oh,
yeah.
I read this section and maybe they have added this
Mm,
information because like in my previous when I was reading, it was just like just throw the errors and don't worry about them. So okay.
yeah.
But honestly, I don't know. I don't spend too much time handling errors in like especially in Phoenix applications because
Mm,
yeah, what could happen in Phoenix? Yeah, it's just fails and nowadays in a live view just reloads and yeah.
it's true. It's true, which is not sometimes it's not the best experience, right? But it's like you know, it's a bit of an annoyance, especially if there was some sort of state in the live view that like the users lost, right?
Yeah.
Then they refill out a form or just have to
Yeah, I think
rebrowse.
this makes sense for if you are writing in some API. Yeah, in this case, you should take care of these error cases and return the correct statuses and go on. But for the live view application, I don't know honestly, because so right now live view applications like it handles the errors in some they have some way to handle errors so they introduced something as context in Phoenix.
Uh,
So, and they say that if something is failing, for example, during the request to the database, so the live view will automatically treat it as 4404 error not found.
oh,
Like,
okay.
yeah.
I have to look that up. I know context, I think, has something to do with passing data around for a request so that you don't have to like pass the
Yes, for
user
example,
verbals and stuff.
you put like you have some context and you're trying to get some resource that you should not get, like you don't have
Yeah.
access into it.
Right. Right. Right.
So
Right.
in this case, if you are doing in the way how context should work, and like you should get this like from ectern not found error, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And the
That's cool.
live view automatically treats it like not
Mm,
found
right.
status.
Okay. That's cool. I need to look at that then. Um, so I wanted to talk about. So there's another approach to this actually, which I'm curious to hear
Hmm.
if you've ever seen in real life. Um, is something like this. Have you seen
Oh
something?
yeah,
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 this is sort of like
I did
labeling
it.
the clauses. You've done it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And the approach appeals to me in a way, but also I feel like, especially as it starts to get more complex, I think it starts to become um,
Noisy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like the helper function approach
Yeah, the helper
maybe
function,
is
by the way, in this case should help. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I've seen this once or twice, I think, just online as like
Mm-hmm.
suggestions. I wanted to bring it up. This is basically, and for anybody watching, the idea is that you call your function and you put it inside of a tuple so that when you actually have the else, you can handle the specific case to address that situation that we were talking about before. So,
I think this is mostly Erlang
ooh,
approach. In
okay,
Erlang, they like to wrap everything in tuples. Yeah.
okay, okay. That has to because it's a record is a tuple, right? If I remember right.
Honestly, I don't know, but like if you remember when you're sending a message to some process, you're wrapping everything in a tuple, and then they will
Yeah,
pattern match
of course.
everything from a tuple. Yeah. So yeah, this like I remember I kind of was invented it when I faced it that okay, I can write the this clause, but for example, the two functions may return the same like same true or false
Yeah,
results. So I have to somehow distinguish it. So yeah, then I like
and you don't want to
kind
write
of
if statements.
yeah, I don't want to hide it, and yeah, so I
Yeah,
kind of created this way. But yeah, I'm not happy with this because yeah, it makes code too noisy and hard to read, and yeah.
yeah, I think so. Okay, so now I have this. This might be a bit of a trick here. So I'm curious to see what you think about this with statement.
Yeah,
So this
okay, I did it before also.
you've done it before.
Yeah, so also I'm not happy with this, but sometimes you have to
Mm,
do it, like
yeah.
extracting values with pattern matching. Yeah, the readability is not perfect here, but
Mm,
from time to time, yeah, I think from this day I start to write the handle functions for such cases. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad
Yeah.
yeah.
This is a good idea. Yeah.
So the thing I wanted to point out with this is that so of course you would probably expect you're going to potentially get back A key and C, right? And you potentially are going to get back some errors with a reason. But do you think is there anything else that you might potentially get back?
Mm, I don't know. Vacancy. I don't know. What else
So
could
you
be?
you might get an OK and a map
An empty map.
because
Yeah.
if the key doesn't exist, then basically all with is not a checking to see if something's okay or not okay. It's only a pattern matching thing, right?
Yeah.
And so if I don't exactly match this pattern, then whatever it was that was returned, whether or not it was okay or error or whatever, that's going to come out
I'm
of the with
ignoring it. Yeah.
and ignoring it. Exactly. And so you're not going to run function three, but you're going to get out an okay. And a lot of people are going to think like, oh, I got an okay, so all of the functions must have run, right?
Mm,
But that's not necessarily true. So to me, this is kind of a huge gotcha for a lot of people that they don't necessarily because pattern matching is so common in Elixir. They're just like, oh yeah, I'll just pull out the key, right? And that's easy. But it's like, okay, well, that's great. If you're doing like a struct where you're guaranteed that the key is going to exist, that's fine. But if you're getting a JSON value and there's some value, and then like you get some response from an API, and you only 99.9% of the time it returns this key, but some every once in a while it doesn't. That's
yeah.
like, oh no, that didn't work the way I expected.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and this is also true of like if you have um, if you have inside of a with like a okay var when is binary var
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
then
I do
you
it
yeah right
very
I do it I've
often.
done it too and
Uh-huh.
then but so what you're going to get is like if that doesn't happen to be a binary in some cases if it was a nil or whatever then it's going to fall out and not run any other clauses right um
Yeah, when in these cases you are writing or ends in the when section, yeah, and everything
Yeah.
is going to be very messy. Yeah.
Yeah. And the same is like any sort of pattern matching. If you sort of like hard code true in there, then if it happens to return false, then you're going to get an okay false. You're not going to get an error, which again, yeah, some people might not expect that. So I think so just to, I guess, bring the point home with this case here that we looked at before, if we were to do this, if we wanted to sort of be sure of ourselves, if we knew that we were always going to get the key, then maybe this is fine. But if not, then maybe what we want to do is say the key, because it's like everybody. I love pattern matching and it's fun to pattern match, but at the same time, like if you're not always sure that you're going to get that key, then you could. This is a way to sort of make your width a little more stable, right? But it depends on the situation, right? It so much depends on what it is that you're getting. So here's I think one more, well, at least one more with statement that I want to look at. I don't know that I've ever done this or not, but maybe we have like an okay that's returned, and then we have like, let's say we're just matching on some variable, and we're doing kind of what I said before, like pull out the key and we pull out a value. This case, we this is actually, this is going to work fine as a with statement. Do you have any opinions on like whether this should be refactored, or have any thoughts on this?
I would just extract this second function call from the top of it, from the this, and put it into a do section.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Because we don't, we don't have our code execution. It doesn't matter what function 2 returns. So in this case, we're just executing a code, and that's this is the just function call, and so we don't need to put it into the this section, into the head of the this section. So
Right.
and I think like Adobe Styler will refactor it, change it into if condition.
Yeah, I've seen things like that, or like it'll pull the first statement out into the before the with, or exactly. Yeah, so exactly right. And I think it's important. Basically, the important thing to know about with is that like you want to be careful about pattern matching, but it is all about pattern matching, right? You're looking for a very particular pattern that is the happy path, as you said initially, right? So I think I want to talk about just one last thing here before we end. I think this has been great. So do you have any thoughts on if we have just like a single with a function call and just like a single clause? Is that something you've done? Is that something you think makes sense?
Yeah, I do it oftenly because I do it when I don't want to care about the error cases. So
Sure.
I'm writing the business logic or any logic for like happy case, and everything else I don't care about it. So in these cases, I write very often. Like I know that there could be some errors, but I don't want to deal with them on this layer of application. So I'm throwing it to someone else.
Yeah, exactly. And I've definitely done that myself. So then I'm curious, because I did actually talk to someone recently, and they were like, "Oh, I don't know that I would ever use a with for like a single case." And I'm like, "No, there's some cases. It's not the same as multiple cases, but there's some cases." So I'm curious, have you ever done this where you match on an error?
No, never.
Yeah,
Never.
I think not a lot of people have, and I think it's because you think of like exactly like you said, right? People think of the with as the happy path. And I think it kind of is, but at the same time, it's maybe not the happy path. It's the very specific what I specified path, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to pull out an example from just a code base I was working on recently. It was my own code base, where I was just like, I wanted to return. Actually, I didn't care about the result of this file.remove here, but I wanted to be able to do something when the error comes up, right? I wanted it to log, and I wanted to just send a sentry. because it was a temporary file, and it's like, and this was in a background job, right? You can see that we're logging out the job
Mhm,
ID.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
So it's like I don't care necessarily if it fails because something happened and I'm not going to be able to do anything about it if it's not there. But I do want to know about it because presumably there's some bug upstream, probably. So anyway, I wanted to point that out. I think that there's cases where it basically is just like if your happy path is if your specified path is the happy path of the OK, then you can do that. And if it's an error, sometimes I think it makes sense. But I think it's because people think of with as a list of OK statements. A lot of times it's like that's what they go with, right? Um, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So this case is interesting. I never thought about it. I never faced such in my code. But yeah, sometimes you need you don't care about the happy path. Yeah, you're just catching the errors. Yeah. So
yeah,
another trick then to use in
and
your code.
exactly right. And I think sometimes even you might be like, okay, actually, this I've even done it where like, there's an error and like I know that I'm not going to care about that error. I want it to be turned into a success further up, maybe. And so sometimes I've done this too, where, in this case originally, what I was using it for was just the side effects, and I wasn't even like that variable wasn't even the last line of the function, so it wasn't being returned or anything. But sometimes I have done it where it's like, yeah, I'm this particular error, maybe usually more in like a case statement where I get an error, maybe, and I want to turn that into it's like, yeah, I don't care about that error. I want it to succeed, even though maybe I logged it or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
cool. Well, thank you very much. This has been great. Um,
Yeah, no problem.
hopefully it's been useful for you.
Yes, this handle functions, it's very interesting thing. So I thinking about it like for me, the this clause is mostly about I'm not putting like in my head, I have distinguished between I say service code when
Hmm.
you're coding to do something, right?
Hmm.
And you have some business logic, right? It's another layer, and so with inside the service code, it's like tricky if else or cases, right? And okay, it's okay, but when you put it into a business layer, it's like you're coding your business logic, happy path business logic, and so it could be different there. So and your approach to handle function, to use handle function to like making a wrapping around the function call, it's like you're declaring a business logic upon this function. Okay, so this function is returning something, but my business logic is like I want to extract something or want to check if this in this map, I want to extract something and such things. So in this case, it's like you're adding a new layer or you're adding a business meaning upon this function, and then you put and then you provided it to the this clause. So if you think that in this case, then it's good. And I was expecting that you will cover when you're writing too many clauses in this.
Yeah, I mean it's a very standard sort of anti-pattern. Again, it's like it's in the code smells. So yeah, but no, I think what you were saying is a really good point to point out that like so much of handling errors, the happy path or whatever, and there's the idea of let it crash and all of these things. It's super important to think about what code am I inside of? Am I in the application logic? Am I in
Yeah,
the live view? Am I inside a process that I'm particularly in control of or not? Like what do I want to happen when there's an error? And so I think it's not magic, right? But it is there's a lot of tools that are available, which is nice.
yeah, yeah. So thank
Cool.
you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having this conversation with me, and I really enjoyed it. So have a nice day.